Hey there, have you ever felt like your business is really starting to spin out of control? You're working all hours of the evening, just doing all these stupid manual tasks, trying to get clients into your business, and now you're focusing so much more on the clients that you have instead of being able to focus on drumming up new business and really starting to grow and scale what you're doing? So, this is a very common place to get to with your business, and you're starting to feel really overwhelmed with all the tasks, but you know that you have a lot of potential. So, when my clients come to me, and what I want to share with you today is how you can automate a client onboarding process so that you can really start to free up time in your schedule to bring on more clients, increase your capacity, and really start to scale through to the next level, be that multiple six or seven figures in your business. So who am I? My name is Claire, and I'm the founder of Claire Whitaker AIC, or Artificially Intelligent Consulting. I am a lover of systems and processes. I work with coaches, consultants, and agency owners to help them implement and streamline systems in their business that allow them to scale through that multiple six-figure mark while creating more freedom in their business in a way that feels good and a way that feels easy. So what I love to do is help people with processes and automation. And so many of my clients come to me because they're getting to the point where they're really maxed out. And in order to be able to grow and scale more, they need the systems in place to help them do that. So if that's where you are, and if you're struggling for where to start, I really want to encourage you to think about your client onboarding process. Now, the reason I suggest starting with your client onboarding process is because it's going to be fairly standardized. There's a contract, there's an invoice, there's a welcome pack, there's client portals, whatever it may be exactly for you. It's going to look pretty much the same no matter what client that you're onboarding, and that makes it a really good place to start when it comes to automation. So in today's little tutorial, what I'm going to talk you through is some of the steps that you can think about when it comes to your client onboarding to standardize it, and then how you can automate that with a tool. In this case, I'm going to be showing you Dubsado. There are others available such as Honeybook, but we're going to use Dubsado as an example because it's nice and simple to show you how those workflows go. If you're ready, let's dive on in. Okay. So to help demonstrate what I'm talking about when I'm saying you can automate your client onboarding, I'm going to take you through this simple SOP for a client onboarding process. And when I say onboarding, what I'm really talking about here is after a client has decided to book with you, how they then sign contracts, pay invoices, schedule sessions, etc., and really get the work started. So here you have a very simple onboarding process SOP. So we've got some KPIs and some scope. We're not going to talk about that too much here, but these are the kind of things that we want to think about when we're looking at automation. So we have the client deciding to book, and that's our trigger. That's what starts this process. And here are some tasks that might happen. So you'll create the project for that client in your client management software. So for example, here we're going to be using Dubsado. Apply the workflow, so all the different tasks that need to happen, set up the client portal with all the information, and then you can have a workflow that looks something like this that gets automatically triggered. So sending a contract, once that contract is signed, they then send the invoice, and then you can send a welcome email as well with like various information that you might want to share with your client, any onboarding questionnaires, that kind of thing can all go in there. Then you can carry on that process by having follow-up sessions and emails, all triggered by having that client in your workflow. You can gather, as we've got at the bottom here, testimonials through this process, and it can all be automated and templated out in your project management software to make that really, really easy for you. So now, as I said, we're going to be using Dubsado. So I wanted to just show you an example. So here are some workflows that I use with my clients, but let's create one from scratch just to show you how simple this can be. So this is going to be called Test Onboarding. Okay, so generally I don't add payment schedules here with my workflows because that can cause issues in Dubsado with how it's invoicing people, so I don't recommend that. But if we take our SOP from the previous tab, you can see that the first step here is send contract. So we have action, and then we're going to go to, where is it? Send contract. And so we want this contract to be sent immediately as soon as this workflow is added. So you want to have it 0 days after previous actions are complete. And that just means as soon as you put a client on this workflow, that will happen. So here we have example contracts to send. So I'm just going to add the one that I use for my VIP consulting. I just use the general templated out email. I don't think you need to make it complicated, and then apply. The next action was, once they sign the contract, to send the invoice. So if we then create invoice, let's just put them on one of my old packages, like a launch planning session. And now here's very important. So we have relative, and we want 0 days after contract signed by client. So this is creating the invoice, and you want to make sure that you tick that button. Now you can add a payment schedule here. Again, I tend not to. What you see is I'll have packages set up, and this isn't a Dubsado tutorial, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. But if you are interested in Dubsado specifically, I have specific packages set up for my payment plan version and my paid in full version, because they are different price points. And the reason I do that is I set up different workflows depending on someone's on the payment plan or not. And that just allows me to automate things easier. It means the setup is a bit more fiddly, but my long-term gains, instead of having to go through and manually change each workflow once someone's signed up, I can just have 2 workflows and just put them on whichever one is relevant for their chosen package. So that's a really specific Dubsado thing that you want to think about. But for the purposes of this tutorial, we're not going to go too deeply into it. This is all about just generally being able to automate things. Okay, and then what we do is we send an email. And so I have all of my emails templated. So I really encourage the use of templates with everything. I think they are amazing. Where is it? And then that way you can it's a lot easier to find, assuming that you can find your templated email. There it is. It's a lot easier to be able to create these workflows and automations. So as you can see in this email template, I've got all of this other information. And if we go back to the SOP, this information in this email template is all of these little subtasks, if you will, that can then be just done in there. Now for this one, because I want to send them, if I want to send them, for example, a link to a Google Drive that is specific for that client, what I'll do is I'll tick the require approval before sending so I can add that link before it goes out. And what Dubsado will do is send me an email when it gets to this stage of the workflow to let me know, or whoever in my team know, that they need to then add that link to their email and get it sent out to the client, so that really increases productivity as well, so that you can make sure everyone has everything they need, and then that they can also really start to make sure that nothing is falling through the cracks and nothing is missed by using that notification feature. So there you have it. That is like a very, very simple, I won't go through the whole steps, but that's a very simple example of how you can start to build out the workflows in Dubsado. I really like this software for onboarding clients. I think it's easier to have something like this, which is very specific and can manage all of that stuff and the invoicing, rather than trying to do it through your project management software and then have to use a load of apps and integrations and try and move things around. I think it's just easier to keep those two things separate and use two softwares. As a general rule, you want to minimize your softwares, but when there's a really good reason to have two, such as this, where you're wanting to manage invoicing and contracts, really important things for your business, it's a good idea to have them separated out so that you can have it most effectively. Having said that, I have seen people do this really well with Zapier. This is just a personal preference and how I like to have things set up and how I recommend my clients do it. But you can, of course, use other integrations to achieve a similar effect. So I hope that that's been useful for you. I think the key takeaway is when you're really starting to book in a lot of clients. And actually, even at the beginning, just to give you peace of mind, having this kind of automation to make sure that no one is falling through the cracks, you're never missing leads, you're not forgetting to onboard people, and people aren't sat there wondering like, where's the contract? Where's the invoice? All of that kind of stuff. And you're not having to chase up invoices manually. That's where these kind of automations are really helpful. And they can really start to take that creative load off you in your business so that you can be more effective. So that's it for this video.